The United Nations has voted overwhelmingly to condemn Russia's attempted illegal annexation of 4 Ukrainian regions. In Brussels, the NATO Secretary General wants member states to send more air defense systems to Ukraine. Here in Nigeria, a Ukrainian civil society delegation is calling for understanding and support in the war with Russia. The team says it has filed over 7,000 war crime cases against the Russian government. Punariman Benjamin reports.
6 months after the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, the war is getting even tougher. In a renewed offensive by Russia, missiles have hit buildings, destroying lives and property in Kyiv, Ukraine's capital. Energy and water supply have been affected. Food and energy prices have gone up. Human rights abuses are also on the rise. Rights activists say there have been increased cases of rape and children have been deprived of getting an education. It says over 400 children have been killed and several other children wounded. The Ukraine Human Rights Center says it will ensure there is no impunity to ensure justice for victims.
With every new wave of aggression, the scale of war crimes is growing. So our main effort is now to provide as much as possible data to the domestic prosecutors and to the International Criminal Court investigators, so they can bring to responsibility not only direct perpetrators who committed these war crimes, their commanders.
This professor from Kyiv is seeking support to end the war.
Your support is very, very important. We appreciate Nigerian support in the UN. But during the resolutions in the UN denouncing Russian aggressions and Russian crimes, Africa, roughly split. Half supported Ukraine and half abstained. So I think it's very important because Nigeria is a very powerful country also to spread the word of truth throughout Africa.
Economists are concerned about the economy and say the damages caused by the war is worth $140 billion.
Because apart from war that they caused to Ukraine, what they are challenging is really the rules for trade, for international trade, and other things, of course. This has to be reestablished, because without smooth trade, there's going to be no growth, there's going to be no exchange.
This delegation is in Nigeria to conduct series of high-level meetings with policymakers, senior government officials, the business community, and civil society groups. The delegation, which is supported by the Ukrainian government, is discussing the realities of the current situation in Ukraine, its impact on Nigeria, and explore opportunities for closer cooperation between Nigeria and Ukraine. Punariman Benjamin, Arise News.
Well, thank you, Punariman, for that report. Dr. Oleg Nivesky, Vice President of Economic Education at Kyiv School of Economics, and Tatiana Pechonchyk, Head Rights Center, Zimna, Ukraine, joins us now. Thank you both for joining us. Tatiana, I do hope I did not murder your name, but I would like to begin this conversation with you. Thank you for coming on the news tonight. Let's start with the latest strikes in the last 48 hours. The Russian government had said that these strikes have achieved targets. Are you worried that this war may be entering a new phase? And when you say justice, what does justice look like for you?
These targets were civilian objects, one of the Russian rockets, and I can remind you that on Monday, Russians sent 84 rockets and 24 drones to hit 20 Ukrainian cities. One of the rockets hit the road near the university I was studying. The second one hit the children playground in the park nearby. Other rockets hit museums, hospitals, residential areas, and also many rockets hit Ukrainian power plant. So part of our cities and our people were without electricity. And this is an obvious war crime, because every war has rules. It means that one army should fight other army, but not civilians. But we see that Russian President Putin gave the direct order to hit civilian infrastructure and civilians. And by the way, the ICC, International Criminal Court prosecutor Karim Khan told that his investigators were hiding in Kiev in the basements and that they will all investigate this crime. And we hope that one day Vladimir Putin will be brought to justice in The Hague.
Yes, indeed. Let's bring in Oleg Nivesky. I mean, he's the Vice President of Economic Education, the Kiev School of Economics. Let's talk about the socio-economic impact of this war on Ukraine. And then secondly, you're in Nigeria. What exactly are your expectations from countries like Nigeria? What kind of support are you expecting? Can't hear Oleg from our offsite studio there. Let me stay with you then, Tatiana. Same question, that I've just put across to Oleg there. The socio-economic impact of this war on Ukraine, not to talk of the over 6,200 deaths that have already been recorded, and that's civilian deaths. What kind of impact really is this war having on Ukraine?
Yes, we see this is a huge humanitarian crisis, but it also hits economy and prices globally. So we are here to deliver the facts that we are fixing on the ground, because Russian propaganda is very powerful and they have invested a lot of money from Kremlin to spread their narratives. And we, the people of Ukraine, as a civil society delegation, we came here to share the facts, but also to ask for the support of the Nigerian government and Nigerian civil society. First of all, in terms of diplomacy, to support Ukraine in voting the UN resolutions and also on other platforms. And just today, the new resolution was voted for territorial integrity of Ukraine, condemning these so-called referendums, illegal referenda, which were held by Kremlin in the newly occupied areas, with 143 countries voting in favor of this resolution, including Nigeria, which we are very grateful for. But we also here are advocating for more support for Ukraine and for justice.
Right. Unfortunately, we still don't have Dr. Oleg at the moment, so we'll stay with you, Tatiana, with this conversation.
Yeah.
There have been wide-ranging sanctions on Russia since the beginning of this war. Nothing seems to be affecting Russia. Instead, it's escalating the war. What must be done, in your own opinion, to actually get what you say President Vladimir Putin should be, convicted at The Hague? What must be done to get to that point?
First of all, I would disagree with you, because I think that sanctions do work, and now EU is adopting the 7th package of the sanctions against Russia, and we see that these sanctions are undermining Russian war machine, and that Russian army are defeated on the battlefield, and Ukrainian army is liberating more and more territories. Almost all Kharkiv region was liberated, and villages. Every day we receive news that new villages and towns are liberated also in the south part of Ukraine, in Kherson region. But coming back to the justice issue, we know that investigations take time, and the investigation in the International Criminal Court for the for the war crimes and crimes against humanity can take time. I don't know, 5, maybe 10 years. We don't know what happens to Russia, to Putin, till that moment. But we also here are to spread the idea that we need a special tribunal on the crime of aggression to punish Russia for the very fact of starting this bloody war, which, by the way, began not only on 24th of February, but 8 years ago in 2014, when Russia occupied Ukrainian peninsula of Crimea, and also when Russia started its aggressive war in the part of Donbass.
Right. I think we have Oleg
Yes,
back on. Good to have you back. Oleg, I mean, you are an economist and you're of the Kiev School of Economics. The question I asked earlier, the short, medium and long-term economic impact, on Ukraine. And the question put earlier also, it doesn't seem like Russia is really being moved. As a matter of fact, not too long ago, we were told that the Russian ruble was the best performing currency in the world, and that came as a surprise to so many. Now that Brussels is promising more funds, is there a way that this could actually be prolonging the war, the Russian war?
The economic costs on Ukraine are immense already. So by the end of this year, we expect our GDP to fall by a factor of 2. And the damages caused by the war are also immense. They are valued at the moment at about 115 billion US dollars. This is more than a half of Ukrainian economy. And according to the last report of the World Bank, Ukraine already needs more than 350 billion US dollars to rebuild and to reconstruct everything. This is almost twice as much as Ukrainian GDP. But that's not local anymore, and it's not regional anymore. You can feel this effect all across the world. So higher prices, higher food prices, higher energy prices. This is where Russia was contributing to the effect, because on the next day after Russia invaded Ukraine, the prices for grain, they increased by 30–40%. And they were increasing further. And Russia didn't allow exports from Ukraine to go into the world market. And that's how, shortage of supply of food, and then not really good further economic outlook, a financial outlook, global financial outlook, that all contribute to the further hardships of the global economy. And if we link that to the number of poverty, that the people in the poverty, according to the recent FAO report, there's going to be more 40 million people starved from hunger, and that causes instability in the world. That can cause another riot in the world. So that all brings about uncertainty, and without trade, that's what Russia is basically challenging. We are not going to be really prosperous in terms of growth, because trade, this is engine for growth, and this is what we are, should strive for.
And would you say that we're on the verge of another global economic crisis as a result of this war, should it go on?
Well, just today in the morning, IMF issued a report with not really good financial and economic outlook. And what is in the report is that Russia's activity is one of the factors that contributes to such a not really good outlook. So I'm not sure whether we are at the gate of this new kind of crisis, but what I'm sure is that what happened in Ukraine, what Russia does to Ukraine, is negatively rippling across the countries in the world. So it's not just kind of a local thing, it's really a global phenomenon at the moment.
Tatiana, help us understand what the feeling is among Ukrainians themselves who are having to face these bombardments and the uncertainty of what could come, from Russia every day. As Russia, renews this onslaught on Ukraine, is there a sense that Ukrainians really are war weary? Are they saying, what exactly are they saying, among themselves, the Ukrainian citizens right now? Especially against the backdrop that they were seen to be, courageous, they're going to fight back Russia with everything it takes.
The Russians want to break our resilience, our resistance by terrifying the civilian population and by committing thousands and thousands of war crimes that we discover also in the course of our field mission and documentation. But the effect is opposite, because the nation with every new attack is more and more united, and now people, I think that Russia has no chances to win this war, and Ukrainian goal is to liberate all our territories and to restore our territorial integrity. And with this spirit of people, I think that we will achieve it. My brother, he is an IT programmer. He never served to army before, but he voluntarily joined Ukrainian army, and he is now on the battlefield, and he's protected our democracy, because we are a democratic country. Russia is a dictatorship, so we are also challenging that you know, authoritarian regime that is trying to restore the USSR, the Russian Empire. So now we are in a way staying on this front and also defending not only our democratic principles but also the rest of the countries.
Okay, I need you to do this very quickly because I do have a question for Dr. Oleg, who was off for a while. But Tatiana, very quickly, the humanitarian crisis, in that report by correspondent Punarimam, she did mention thousands of children that have been that are starving and that have died. How bad is it in Ukraine at the moment?
Yes, according to the official statistics, now during these 7 months of the new wave of the Russian armed aggression, at least 400 children were killed, and also much more were wounded. But also there are cases of rape, of sexual violence, not only against women and men, but also against children, which were committed by the Russian army. And also the hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian children cannot go to school normally because they have to hide in the bomb shelters.
Thank you, Tatiana. I know Ngozi wants to jump in here, but I just wanted to ask Dr. Oleg this question. I'd put across to Tatiana earlier. The wide-ranging sanctions on Russia, would you say they have achieved their targets? If not, what should the global economies be doing to stop Russia in its track?
Well, I think that sanctions are working. Our institution, Kyiv School of Economics, from the very first day of the aggression was trying to advise and participate in kind of things related to sanctions, developing them, advising them. And what we see is that, you know, sanctions are working. We see that, you know, supplies of gas and oil will be cut off. Soon. There are various packages of sanctions devised from European Union, from the large powers, and we see, at least from the discussion and from what's happening in Ukraine, that, you know, the sanctions take time to work, yeah? but they are already starting to work, and we see how the you know, GDP, the quarterly GDP in Russia drops down, and this is just only the beginning, and more will come, and we see that the entire world will get more and more angry with Russia, and new sanctions are in a design and implementation, so it will come sooner or later.
All right, and this is what we have to say. Thank you so much. Tatiana Pechonchyk is head of Human Rights Center Zamina, Ukraine, and Oleg Nivesky, vice president of the Economic Education School of Economics in Kyiv. Thank you both of you for joining us, and we wish Ukraine the very best.